So for our group assignment, we had to get together and we had a few tasks. The first one was during week one of this assignment, get with your classmates and exchange contact information, copy your instructor on the initial correspondence and how you are communicating, phone, email, text, blah, blah. You will you will want to be able to email, call, text, or set up other forms of communication with your group. So I think we successfully did this. So I wanted to take a second to maybe get some feedback on that, how your experience was working with a group online. That's always a joy in itself. And then, just who you are and what you're doing right now in this program. And I'm not going to start.
All right, I can start. So I think our online communication was really successful. We did communicate really good, although we had to reschedule, but it happens because, life isn't perfect.
Right.
So it was successful. And we're doing our video discussion finally. Well, other than that, my name is Leonie. I just go by Cookie. It's my lifelong nickname. Um, Doing the MFA in media design really helps me focus on what I want to do like in the future. I want to start with my service of branding, not only personal branding but corporate branding as well. So that's my goal after I finish my MFA.
Very cool.
All right, I can start now. So yeah, I think we were successful from the beginning of class. We've been communicating, and I mean, it's always hard to get people together, especially with an online class when everyone's not even in the same area and has way different schedules. So I think for everything, and I mean, there are times where I've seen other people in other classes where the person doesn't respond to anything at all until like the day before the assignment's done. I'm just like, you're killing me because I've been waiting around
Right.
to contact you, and now we have all this time to cram it in. Thanks.
Seriously.
But I'm Natalie, and right now I'm just trying to get this master's degree done. I figured I wanted to, after completing the bachelor's through Full Sail and the online course being the way it was, I figured I might as well just go for my master's and kind of fine tune my skills anyway before I start research. And I also want to be my own business, and that's the one thing I love about design is you don't necessarily have to just be like, okay, someone hire me.
Right.
It's like, hey, this is what I can do. Multiple people hire me. I don't have to be stuck in one place, especially because I want to start traveling once my little ones are a little bit older.
I love it. So,
Fun.
I know, that's really fun, and I love the travel part. I am Jackie Choice. I loved working with you guys. I had a group in this class last month, because I'm taking this over immediately, that was so hard to get a hold of. What's up?
Okay, I'll take care of her in a minute, Jay.
Oh. So I had literally, they were exactly what you just said, Natalie. Like, I could not get anybody on the same page at the same time. And I guess my journey is like a little backwards. So I already do work for myself, and I kind of just did it off of complete self-taught. I got my master's or my bachelor's in marketing and did not get it from Full Sail. And it kind of started in corporate America, made some good contacts, and said, you know what, screw working for the man. I'm about to work for myself. So I kind of snatched some of those contacts and am in business on my own. But I wanted to just get the concrete, basics of any kind of design class. I never took a design class in my life. So for me, it was more or less like, okay, what can tie into marketing and then also is still strong in the branding component that I'm doing. So the MFA in media design kind of just made sense. But it makes it really hard. And so I'm really appreciative of you guys because it's like, I suck. My schedule is disgusting and I have no like normal people times. So I appreciate you dealing with me.
That's awesome. And
Thanks.
go for you for doing what you're doing. That's kick ass.
Thanks, girl. It's really
not easy,
fun.
but it's not impossible either. So
Right.
there you go.
Exactly. So I just talked to our professor yesterday. Today, well, I was off yesterday to Sunday. I'm off. I just like told my clients, I was like, I have to catch up on half this work that I haven't done for this class. My house is a mess. Like I just need 4 solid days. So I'm kind of geeked to sit down at my computer for a little bit and like really knock out some stuff. So yeah, it's been real, but it's really fun. So we are going to go into our next question, if that works, which is around our reading. So question 2 is discuss the reading, animated storytelling, and one outside article you found that had an impact on your understanding of working with motion. How has the reading helped you better understand how motion is used to elevate a brand? How will it help you as a designer in the future? So we'll kind of break it into 2, and we'll start with talking about our reading and animated storytelling.
All right, I can start. So by reading the book, the parts that really, well, the chapter that really got to me and that I found really interesting was the concept development, like the pre-production of animated storytelling. I find it really interesting because it talks about how to organize your stuff, how to organize each section of what are you developing. The first part talks about what is it. I think that's the hardest part because we have so many ideas sometimes in our head and we don't know what our outcome might be from the beginning on. But that's what concept development is about, like putting your ideas together and have a creative brief, have a story, kind of plan it out in your mind and write it on paper. And then it goes, from there it goes to the second one, which is what does your concept looks like. So here is where the sketching comes in, storyboard and everything, which we all know not everybody is an artist, drawing artist. So I find it like really fun drawing stick figures to just plan out my storyboard and to visualize it more, to see what it's gonna look like in the end and what are the transitions that I'm gonna use, what are the motions that we're gonna use. And the third part is about what is it made of, like the asset building, like it helps define the look and feel about your creative brief that you started with in the beginning from the pre-production. So I think being organized and the pre-production part, it helps you strategically plan out your outcome, even though it's not gonna look the same as you planned it in the beginning, but it gives you idea and helps you add on things because it's in steps, it's in sections. So I find that really that chapter really interesting because we all have ideas to add on a later day, and then we want to change things. So being organized helps with the outcome of a project in animated storytelling.
Love it.
Totally agree with you.
Same. I think it was, again, this book is very organized just across the board. So in the pre-production down to every component or every chapter, it breaks the chapter down into little mini chapters. And I found that to be very resourceful to be able to go back and say, okay, I kind of felt like I was getting it in storyboarding, but maybe I need to just step back and look at my framing or the staging and understand like how I can fine tune that one area to make it make more sense or to make it even become a story at some point. So I really did appreciate that in this book as well.
Yeah, like I agree. Storyboarding section was one of the sections that I thought was so helpful, especially with having a crazy schedule, being able to just get the basics and the best way to storyboard. Because I've done it multiple times, but I always feel like I could do it better. And I feel like they really explained a good way to go about it, and just storyboarding in general, to the point where I knew I had everything laid out and knew, okay, so I have a busy schedule coming up here. I need to get this and this taken care of because it's going to be the heaviest part of my storyboard, compared to, okay, well, this is going to be easier for me to do. Don't have to really worry about that. So I can work on other parts, not necessarily have to work from start to finish because I already have everything planned out. I'm not like, oh, well, I can't do this without building this first. It's like, no, I know this is going to be there, so I can work on this and then go back to that later when I have more time and effort to be able to do that. I also thought that chapter 8 and 9, technique and animate, in the book were helpful, just with technique explaining the different types of motion graphics and like getting a more understanding of like 3D CGI. Like you always see it being used in movies and everything, and it's like I know what it is, but do I understand it?
Right.
No. I like to read and get a better understanding of it. I thought was awesome. And then chapter 9, I think the one thing that I took out of chapter 9 was, I think it's like the second page in the chapter where it's just like the headline is "Start easy, gain confidence." And I was just like, gosh, that's so simple, but something that I need to remind myself all the time. Like, especially if I'm doing something that I've never really like put too much effort and done in, instead of like trying to be like, oh no, it needs to be at this level right away. It's like, no, start at this level, work on it, gain confidence, and then tweak that, make it better, and then keep tweaking it, and then it gets to where you want to be. It doesn't need to go from 0 to 50. So that's one of the 3 things that I really enjoyed and took out of the book from the reading.
I love that.
I think the book helps clarify like each section, like what are you working on and why. Like always know your why.
Yeah,
where you work. That's really important. So it helps us clarify, especially when we're working on these assignments, what is the reason behind this that we're doing.
Exactly. So chapter 9 is a pretty boss chapter. And one of the ones that stuck out to me the most in that chapter was the be flexible with soundtrack. So for my dynamic storyboard, I thought it would be genius to put together music, but then also have like a voiceover. I don't know who I thought I was, but I was like, you know what? I can record a voiceover and like add it to this. And the mixing, the first time I did it, it was not cute. Like the thought in my head did not translate to my vision board at all. So I felt like, well, one of the lines in it is like, if the soundtrack isn't working, then you use it as an opportunity to dig deeper. And that was for me. Like that line was for me. It's okay if it's not working. So that book or this book does that a lot. You know, it's a lot of times where it's like not repeating the information, but it's like almost a little confidence nudger that lets you know like, hey, it's okay that it sucked the first time. Just try again, you know, to be a little bit more intentional with round 2. And I really, that book did a really good job of kind of keeping your spirits up when you're trying something new. So, any more thoughts on the book?
About 5 minutes left from if we want to hit 20 minutes on the books. So,
well, perfect.
Let's see. Speaking on just the way it gives you little nudges, I also thought that chapter 10, the show and tell, and packaging your project, especially because like I'm in the process of retooling my whole portfolio and everything. I was just like thinking of the best ways to showcase and package all the work that I have done and are continuing to do, and how to network. And I just thought that with coming like to the end with the masters, and really just, you know, you're at your masters, you're ready to go out there and networking and everything. I thought this was one of the best ways that I've read out of all the books and articles so far that I've come across, that it even had a little extra inspiration section at the very end that I thought was awesome. I was just like, kudos to the author of this book for like really thinking about who was going to be reading it. He did an awesome job with the audience.
I love that. It's so important too, because, you know, as creatives in general, we pay attention to stuff like that. You know somebody designed this book, you know somebody wrote it, right? But we look at it on a even deeper level, like how or what do they think would be attractive to their audience. And I feel like I've read books or had to read other books that just completely missed the mark on this. And this book, seriously, it's like they really took some time when they wrote this one. So I appreciated it.
Yeah.
And it really encouraged you to start doing your own. Like when it says at the end a little inspiration, it's like, now start your next film here. Like it encouraged you that now that you read that book, you know how to start.
Exactly.
Yes. I love that they add a little storyboard. And I love the last quote from that work. It's just serious play, because like that's one of the reasons why I love design, decided to go in, because it was something that I felt like I was good at, but like I just enjoyed doing it. I really enjoyed doing it, because when I started college, I at first wanted to go in for crime scene technology, and after like acing my whole like first year, my teacher said one thing at the end of our final was like, "Can you see yourself enjoying this every day for the rest of your life? Because not stop here. Don't go any further. Don't waste your time in any more of these classes. Just continue with your associates in arts and figure out what you want to do there." And I swear, if he hadn't said that, I probably like would have just been like, okay, well, I'm doing well in this. Let's just get this degree. And at the end of it would have been like, well, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this, because I don't think I want to continue and do that.
And what a big difference. Okay.
Yeah, like that's a huge difference from being technical and like not using like the creative aspect of my brain at all, which is what thrives too. Like technical, like fill out reports. This is what you have to do. This is the scientific fact of this. It's completely different. Like I swear, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have known what to do. I would have just been like, I'm miserable. And I saw that school for no reason.
That's hilarious. I love that. Talk about divine intervention. He probably didn't even know the changes he was about to make in life. That's so awesome. I love it. Okay, so we don't have anything else on the book. We can go forward into the second half of this question, which is to discuss one outside article that you found had an impact on your understanding of working with motion.
Right. Who wants to go first?
I can talk about my article. So I had it pulled up and I lost it. I had an article that was a roundtable with the Emotive Brand Company that's out of San Francisco. They're a pretty solid branding agency that works with a lot of high-level clients, corporate clients. They did a campaign with Squarespace, which was pretty much the one they focused on in this roundtable. But what they talked about the most was how motion in branding is just like the new normal, and how it almost sounds scary to other people when they think about it. They're like, oh, motion, is that really something that's such a huge part of branding? But it really is. Branding is literally, or motion is pretty much in all of the new branding campaigns that are moving forward. And this article kind of just opened my eyes to pay attention to it, if that makes sense. So after I read up on this roundtable, I realized how often I witness motion and branding all the time, but don't realize that that's what it is. So, for example, splash screens that are animated versus still, seeing again motion posters instead of still posters, and everything along those lines, especially like even on my Instagram, everything is animated. People are putting up videos to promote their brands instead of pictures. People heavily now rely on the, if you use Instagram, your Insta story instead of just your Insta like post or picture posts, and you can promote Insta stories now. And that's again sticking to the idea of motion versus just being static. And I thought that that was cool to realize that that's what motion and branding was. Like, does that make sense? It was almost like an aha a moment for me that everything I'm seeing right now is branding in motion or motion in branding, however you want to put it, when it's not like that difficult. I feel like I was making it be some grandiose idea that it was difficult or something that it wasn't. And this article kind of brought me back to life. Like, wait a second, this is just another level to connect with your clients in the realm of branding. It's not this huge, scary monster. It's something you're kind of already doing. So, yeah, I really enjoyed reading that, and especially from an established agency like Emotive.
Yeah, motion is everywhere, and it was actually one of, I don't know if it was what class it was, but I remember having to write an article about advertising in general, and it came across like as I was sitting there thinking, when my kid is on his iPad, or even when I'm just like on a game or something, or just do something, most of the ads now are all animated. There's some motions. Some of them are even, you can play part of the game before you buy the game, and it's just like, when I saw that, I was like, people are getting so smart and realizing what it is that people pay attention to, keep their attention, and crave, and it's motion and being able to be interactive, and it's only going to keep becoming more and more popular. So like for people that are just like, oh no, I don't want to do it, it's like, you better get on the bus or you're going to get left behind.
Right.
A lot of brands are going to suffer for not trying to move forward.
Absolutely.
Oh yes, motion graphics in general is taking over every advertising marketing style nowadays. I read an article on How Design. It was about an interview that they did with actually the author of Animated Storytelling, the book we just read for this class. And she was talking in the interview about how when the technique is in harmony, it becomes more engaging, because if you have several objects moving in different places, it can become chaotic. So when everything is in harmony, it forms in more engagement to the animated storytelling, or to the motion graphics, or to what you're advertising. So I think that's an important factor when we think about animated storytelling, because we want every style, every motion to have a reason why it is like that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to have motion for the sake of just having motion. You don't need to animate something just because you want to be cool and do what everyone else is doing. You want it to mean something, or express something, or make a statement.
Right. Be intentional with your designs instead of just trying to be trendy, because trendy dies, but intention is forever.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. I'll talk about the article that I found. It was from Column 5 Media, and it was 27 Tips to Make Motion Graphics That Make an Impact by Katie French. And pretty much, as the title states, is 27 tips. I thought the tips were great. They were super helpful. They talk about just general motion graphic tips, like how to apply your visual language, and when in doubt, do less. Less is always more in designing, of course. And then with brainstorming, ask why motion, like we were just talking. Why are you using this motion? Why are you planning on doing it? And to know your goal, know the end effect, know what you're trying to get across, be specific in what you're trying to do, and then like have a design and animation involved from the beginning. And then like to copywriting, to audio, music, voiceover and sound effects, to the actual design aspect, the animation. They just break down and give little tips for all of those subjects. I thought it was super helpful. And one of the articles that I had bookmarked to go back to as I continued to design things, to, just be like, oh, wait, I need a little reminder here. This is something that I need to remember.
Nice. And what a helpful tool. Like, let me get those 27 tips.
It all really comes down on how to better clarify your project for yourself. So what you're working on and what you want your outcome to be. So they're all really helpful articles.
Exactly. It's something that I'm going to add to my blog and my portfolio as something that, hey, this is an awesome asset for a designer to just go back and use. So here it is.
Right. I love that. So I think that's question 2. And my recording has us at 28 minutes already, so I think we're doing pretty good. Next question, if we're ready to move on, is find one outside example of motion discussed in class, either motion, graphic, and could I not say this word last time? Animatic? Whatever. Cinematograph, motion poster, or parallax image, and discuss with each other how the example is used in the real world. How is this style of motion used to engage an audience? And I'll open the floor.
Well, I can talk about my favorite. So my favorite of all is the motion poster. And I've been reading articles about that, like ever since I've seen the articles on the assignments. It's like a really cool thing. I never thought I can actually make that. But it's really cool when you actually get this into the software and try things, see tutorials and follow them. They're really cool. Moving along, so I think motion poster is something that has been increasing, like more and more. You can see it with all the movies that are coming out. They attract and engage the audience. It makes you stop for a second and see the screen, like, oh my god, it's moving, like, and you see what the focus is on, and it gives you an emotion as well. So the traditional movie posters are somewhat becoming obsolete. Like the motion posters are now more trendy, and it engages people more. And the growth of social media, it's on there too. You can use it as a GIF, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really awesome how technology has been developing, and now we can see motion poster. I can't imagine what is to come next for movie posters.
I know. They're going to have to, like, involve scent or something. I always think, like, what's the one sense that I don't have used, or I don't automatically think about in branding, and the only one I've been able to not grasp quite yet is scent. Like taste, well, I guess taste too, except if you're working with like a brand anyway, but scratch all that. Point is, motion posters. Motion posters are legit amazing and everywhere. I shared that I was sitting in traffic and I realized that at the bus stop, they're not still anymore. They are now motion posters for everything from mom and pops down the street, which, by the way, don't know who has those accounts and is designing for mom and pops down the street with a budget enough to make motion posters that go on to MARTA bus stops, but that's another thing. And then, you have the actual movies, but you have a ton of brands and companies, local and large, that are using the motion posters, and they're just in spaces that I wouldn't have, eventually have thought of, but already now, it almost seems a bit futuristic to me to be sitting at a red light in traffic and to look over and see a motion poster. So I think that's just a really cool way to, again, realize how much motion really is around us all the time.
Oh yeah, and to think about the movie posters, like their original movie posters, and just something in the poster is emotion.
Yep.
So there are no add-ons from the movie posters sometimes. Sometimes they add more just to make it the motion poster, but sometimes it has the original content just as the movie poster, but one thing is in motion, and that's really amazing.
I love it.
I can think of, I think it was Wizard of Oz. They did that with the poster of the Wicked Witch standing there, and the still was just her with a tornado behind her, and in the motion poster, the tornado was spinning. And then Sonic did one where the lightning on the ground, it, I guess, pulses a blue static pulse, like that you just ran across it. Those were the two that I had seen. Oh, and then Pirates of the Caribbean, and I loved it because it was just like, it was the exact same poster, but they just put a little overlay, made it look like something old and dusty had come across it. It was just subtle, but like totally caught your eye.
I love it. I'm still obsessed with the Wonder Woman one, where she's just kneeling there. Like, that to me, when I think motion poster, is the first place my mind goes is to that Wonder Woman. She's like life goals, of course.
Okay, and then another example of one of the motion styles was parallax images. These are used on website everywhere. Almost every website I come across has some sort of parallax image, parallax scrolling. It's almost overused, but in some cases it just makes sense to do it that way. And
Oh my God, is that outside?
yeah.
Where do you live? Is that coming up here to me? That was terrifying.
I'm in Florida, like Central Florida, so. But literally, it could be like this right by me, and then down the road of my parents, it'd be nothing.
Yeah.
So
true.
But yeah, like parallax images, I think it's such a great technique, especially since it's been used since Super Mario, Sonic, like those classic games. I think some of the Disney movies, like Snow White, were used with parallax imagery. So it's definitely a concept that's not going to go away anytime soon, but like not every website needs to be that dynamic where it has a parallax image. It's like, okay, motion for the sake of motion does not work all the time, as we previously discussed.
Right. Not cutting it. One of these elements that I wanted to discuss was just the use of kind of dumbing it down into specific softwares, or I guess you call it software, but then, like, for example, Animoto is one that you can use as just a website that you pay a monthly fee for. So it gives you the option to make video graphics or video animations. And for me, I was battling with using it as a cop out more or less than using it as something that was like a first go to. So I know some designers don't even know that there's a way to make things on your own. So the things that we're learning or that the skills we're honing in this class, you know, we're learning how to create these videos from pure scratch. Whereas, you know, you can just pay for an Animoto login or whatever it is, and you have their entire, you know, library of stock videos and images. But then you run into the fact that you can't really, you know, make pretty changes to fonts. And now you're stuck with the same fonts every single time, and everything starts to look the same. You can't move things around on the actual screen itself. So you have like 3 sections where you can pick from for the words to go, rather than, you know, having complete full reign when you use, what do we use? Premiere?
Premiere,
Premiere Pro?
After Effects, depending on what you're doing. Yeah,
Right.
like, yeah, but speaking of those, like, yeah, exactly. Well, it's like Adobe made Adobe Spark pretty much for that same reason, for people that didn't want to fully get into the design, but kind of a dumbed down version of all of their 3 big programs put into one, or mostly 2. It's like Premiere Pro and Photoshop in one little app. But it's like Canva too. Like, people use Canva to make quick little infographics and stuff like that. And like, even as a web design aspect, doing anything using a theme or using a site like Wix or Squarespace, where it's mostly like a tutorial or a template out there for you. You have the specific layout and you can change specific stuff. Well, I mean, really it comes down to, as a designer, you're more than just the tool you use.
Right.
But you don't get that full free range. So you don't want to. I feel like there are times where I always utilize everything. Anything that I come across, I will use anything in any way if it's going to help me. But I don't ever want to stifle myself as a designer and have to be like, okay, well, I have to do it in this, and I really want to do this, but I can't because it doesn't allow me. So at that point, it's like, well, you got to move on to whatever it is you can, like, that can help you get to your vision. Don't use it to, if it's going to hurt your vision, but if it's going to help it in any way, then I feel like it's like, saves me 20 steps in having to do one thing that's going to take me 10 hours, because I'm not like some of the other designers that can just bust something out in like 5 minutes and be like, oh, I'm done. I'm like, yeah, okay, give me a few hours and I will. With everything else and self-doubting myself and being like, no, I need to tweak this. No, I need to tweak this. No, I need to tweak this. It's like, becomes a whole project. So if I can make a shortcut, then definitely. But as long as I'm still in charge of my design and I get to do what I want.
Yeah, and I feel also that because we have to keep in mind that the goal is to inform and engage the audiences with motion graphics. So as long as it does that and it satisfies your design goals, I think you can use shortcuts. It doesn't really matter, because it's how the artists do it and not the software. It's more about you and not and what you can do, right? So
end of the day, the client doesn't know, right? As long as they don't know, we're good.
It's like a photographer, like, they always say, like, oh, it's a really nice camera. And it's like, well, it's not just about the camera. It was me positioning the person that way, the lighting, the angle, everything that goes into it. Like, yeah, you can take really nice pictures with your iPhone, but you're not going to get all the time and technique and like those really great standout pictures that have been placed and taken time to have been thought out. Those are the ones that someone's going to be like, oh, wow, look at that. I mean, like, sure, yeah, you're going to get nice photos, but it's completely, that's why it's an art. It's their craft.
Right.
Just are more than that camera.
Agreed. Absolutely. So we are at 40 minutes. Not bad. If we wanted to, we can move on to the next one. This is question 4. Discuss your story journal and how keeping a story journal has helped you think about narrative and the use of narrative in design.
I guess I'll go. I thought this class doing this was super helpful because there are times where I keep telling myself I'm going to journal all the time. And there are times where I do, like, if I have something come to my mind, then I will jot it down. But to force myself to be like, no, I need to write something down because it's part of this assignment and it's going to affect my grade, and forcing me to actually do it really helped me down and think about things that I necessarily wouldn't have been like, oh, that's a really good design idea, or those color schemes are awesome. I can use that in a design coming up, and to take note of that, and just to actually look around and try to get inspiration from different things that I necessarily wouldn't have been trying to look for inspiration, because I knew that I had to write something down and force myself to actually come up with something. Because though it was hard to always have it in my little journal that I had said, okay, this is going to be my journal for my class. I'm going to write everything down in this journal. There are a lot of times where it was like, okay, well, I wrote it down on this. Let me transfer it over to the journal so I can say it's in there. But that's not where the exact idea came. I always have either my phone or my iPad around, so I usually journal in that. But really helping me sit down and focus, it reminded me of being in high school and having an English teacher that every day in class, just sit down, don't say anything, write down whatever it is that's on your mind, anything. It could be about nothing. He just wanted words, literally words. He could read it, and there are times where he would just tell us to go take a walk and just sit and write, find something to write about. I always found like that's when some of the best writing I've done came, some of the best poetry, some of my best ideas, just sitting there and making myself think, but not really think too hard. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this class.
I love that. I would have to agree that one of the best things to do is just sometimes kind of get out of your own head to be able to get in your head. I know that sounds absolutely insane, but if you take a moment to just kind of step back and then go and do reflecting in a journal of any sort, it's like you are coming from a more refreshed place, so the ideas flow a little better. I had a teacher in high school that also did that, and I thought it was really cool. One, because you got a little bit of free reign and got to dip out of class for a second, do the walk around, like just got to leave. But then also because it really does. It's like if you, and I think that's part of the reason why we were supposed to do this story journal exercise in the first place, is because you have different sparks of inspiration in different places. So for me, the ideas that I come up with in this story journal or in any journaling situation are the ones I have when I'm at home are going to be completely different than the ones that are probably just in a corner on my notebook while I'm sitting in front of a client or while I am in a work setting where my mind is not as free always to be as creative. So I appreciated the story journal giving me the opportunity to think about taking notes or capturing things even while I was outside of the realms of an office, because most of my brainstorming or ideas happen in my office space rather than, like I said before, being on Pinterest and scrolling and just thinking of that as inspiration for advertising or inspiration for branding, or in this case, narrative for motion. Like just really taking a look at everything that could possibly be an inspiration and then using that to journal rather than, being confined to the walls of my office and the kind of almost stuffy ideas that come from that after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I completely agree that because everybody is different. So our inspirations come from depends on where you are. So if you're in your room most of the time, or you're at work most of the time, it depends on what you're thinking of. That's why it's really interesting about getting to know where inspiration comes from for each one of us. For me, story journaling was somewhat difficult, especially because I had to keep a pen and a paper like all of the time. Since now we use technology for everything, I put everything on my notes. So on my cell phone, even my grocery list is on my cell phone. Everything, like even if I'm, like, for example, on my bed ready to go to sleep and something came to my mind, the first thing I grab is my phone and not a piece of paper and a pen. So that part for me was a bit difficult. But did um I did journal, and even though I wrote it on my phone, like I typed it, I went like during the day and go on my journal and write about the ideas that came to my mind. And um, even if I had a conversation going on with people during the day and something came to my mind, I typed it on my phone, and then I went to my journal and like plan it out. So it's not really that paper and pencil writing, but I had the chance to plan it out on my journal. And what wasn't difficult for me was coming up with ideas on what came to my mind. I always had like, okay, let's create an advertisement for this idea that came to my mind, or let's create a sticker for something. Or it always came down to creating something new or from that specific topic that inspired me, that I journaled about. So it was difficult for me to have different sections of journaling during the day, because everything I journaled about, I try to connect it to one thing that I'm the most focused on and create an idea out of that. So there were parts that were difficult, but some of them were somewhat easier for me.
Yeah, having that pen and paper always by was so hard. But I do understand like the whole like writing something down, like free writing and not typing. That's one of the reasons why like there are times where I just to get both, I will take my iPad and my pen and just like journal down that way, even though it looks horrible and it's chicken scratch. I'll then just to get some of those ideas out and then change it over or type it out so it's a little bit more coherent. But I love Pinterest. It is the best thing, and I used to use it just for like ideas and do-it-yourself stuff. And then when I started designing, it was like a great place to pin design ideas, to find free resources, to bookmark resources. Like, and it was such a better way to like, instead of having just a bunch of bookmarks, to actually have one where it's like, okay, well, no, this and this and this. This is where I find all my assets. This is where I find all of these things, and then just to scroll through it sometimes, just be like, oh wait, this is a great idea, or
right.
I could totally like build off of this. Is this awesome? I love it.
Pinterest is amazing.
Oh yes.
And it is fun to be on there and then, go down little rabbit holes. I feel like Pinterest is so good for getting you set up to dig even deeper into something you had no idea you had any interest in. So,
Yeah.
like, who knew I wanted to make macarons at home? I didn't. But, like, I had no clue, but it's the same.
Then I have, like, a list of, like, 10 different kinds I'm going to make, whenever I get around to it.
Yeah.
Or during the holiday, I'll see really cute things that I want to do or try, and it's just, like, I'll pin it and then be like, okay, well, next holiday, because I'm too busy this holiday to do it.
Yeah, I'm always waiting on somebody to say, well, let's have like a bake trade-off thing at work so I can just go to my Pinterest board and be like, okay, I got 1,700 cookies.
I have reason to do something.
Exactly. But then I will say, even though I have never actually made a macaron. I did find a picture of some that I really liked the color scheme from, and I used it to create a logo. So
There you go.
I still kind of did it.
You can get inspiration from anywhere and
Exactly.
anything.
Don't sell yourself short. You don't let those macarons
Never.
go. Awesome. So I think we discussed our story journals. That wraps us up. We're at 50 minutes, but I think we hit everything right on target. So if we're good and all hearts and minds are clear, I can wrap us up.